Within a year, she'd clawed her way to HOA president. Trouble started with a certified letter, heavy with that gut punch officialness. It claimed that my gatehouse violated Silver Shore's aesthetic standards, and demanded its removal, threatening a $600 daily fine. I chuckled. My gatehouse predated their gated community by decades. But Cynthia had done her research, citing HOA Regulation 52C, Exterior Structure Compliance. I dug through Clara's old files in the cabin's attic, the air thick with dust and history. I found survey maps, deeds, and a 1918 grandfather clause exempting pre-existing structures. Armed with proof, I marched into the HOA meeting at the community center, the air reeking of floor polish and bureaucracy.
Il est out my document-like à Royal Flush.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's been a misunderstanding. Cynthia barely glanced at them. Progress demands change, Mr. Hensley, she said, her smile dripping with condescension, like she was scolding a toddler. The board voted 6-1 to enforce the fines. Her allies, newcomers with lakefront McMansions, outvoted the old-timers who knew what community meant. Within a year, she'd clawed her way to HOA president. Trouble started with a certified letter, heavy with that gut-punch officialness. It claimed that my gatehouse violated Silver Shore's aesthetic standards, and demanded its removal, threatening a $600 daily fine. I chuckled. My gatehouse predated their gated community by decades. But Cynthia had done her research, citing HOA Regulation 52C, Exterior Structure Compliance. I dug through Clara's old files in the cabin's attic, the air thick with dust and history. I found survey maps, deeds, and a 1918 grandfather clause exempting pre-existing structures. Armed with proof, I marched into the HOA meeting at the community center, the air reeking of floor polish and bureaucracy.
Il est out my document-like à Royal Flush.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's been a misunderstanding. The day they tore down my great-grandmother's gatehouse was the day I decided to turn their $5 million lakeside development into a silt-choked mess. It's 6 a.m. on a Wednesday, and I'm nursing coffee on my porch, the morning fog curling over the lake. Then I hear it, the growl of heavy machinery. A wrecking crew is heading for the iron gatehouse that my great-grandmother, Clara Hensley, forged in 1918. That gatehouse stood as the entrance to our community for over a century, a testament to its resilience. But to Cynthia Warwick, the HOA queen with a vendetta, it was outdated. Here's what Cynthia and her polished HOA board didn't know about Texas water law. My great-grandmother didn't just build that gatehouse, she controlled the reservoir's sluice gate. And I inherited something more substantial than any HOA rule, the legal power to drain their precious lake. Drop a comment. What would you do if someone tried to erase your family's history? Where are you watching from? I want to hear your HOA horror stories. My name's Riley Hensley, a hydraulic engineer. 4 months ago, I inherited a stunning lakeside property, a cabin Clara built in 1917 after surviving the Spanish flu. The gatehouse wasn't just decorative, it was a functional marvel, hand-forged iron framing a stone arch that marked the only road into our valley. For 100 years, it welcomed farmers, families, and fishermen. It was our community's heartbeat. When I inherited the land, my partner, Alex, and I had plans in place. We'd been saving to renovate the cabin, maybe start a small engineering firm from home. Mornings would be spent kayaking, the lake's ripples like a quiet promise. Then Cynthia Warwick rolled in. Cynthia's the type to wear designer sunglasses to a county fair and drive a gleaming Lexus that's never touched gravel. She moved into the Silver Shores resort community 3 years ago, a glitzy development that popped up across the lake like a nasty rash. Progress demands change, Mr. Hensley, she said, her smile dripping with condescension, like she was scolding a toddler. The board voted 6-1 to enforce the fines. Her allies, newcomers with lakefront McMansions, outvoted the old-timers who knew what community meant. Walking to my truck, gravel crunching underfoot, I realized this wasn't about aesthetics. It was about control. Cynthia saw my cabin, my beat-up Jeep, and my rustic gatehouse and decided I didn't belong in her vision of paradise. Alex tried to stay positive over dinner, gripping my hand. We'll fight this, Riley. The law's on your side. But I wondered if being right was enough. Cynthia didn't wait long to escalate. 3 days later, I spotted 2 guys in khaki polos lurking near my property line, HOA compliance officers. At 7 a.m., one read from a clipboard, "Lawn exceeds height standards. The porch needs repainting." Shed violates setback rules. They cited me for everything from my mailbox's unapproved font to a kayak visible from the road. By week 3, I faced $1,500 in fines. I did what engineers do. I analyzed the system. A late-night dive into state records revealed Cynthia's husband, Greg, owned Warwick Compliance Services, pocketing $4,000 monthly from the HOA to harass residents. His license? Expired for 8 months. Knowledge nugget: in Texas, HOA compliance firms are required to be licensed. Always verify their credentials before they can fine you. I called in a favor from a colleague who does property inspections. We strolled through Cynthia's estate. Her gazebo? No permits. Her koi pond? Encroaching 2 feet onto my land. She'd been trespassing for years. I filed complaints with the state and requested a boundary survey, handling the matter quietly and professionally. Cynthia's retaliation was swift. Whispers spread at the feed store: Riley's trouble. That gatehouse is a hazard. Alex came home shaken. Her neighbors at the bakery had given her the cold shoulder. Anonymous complaints flooded in. Someone claimed my gatehouse was structurally unsound. Another said I was polluting the lake. As an environmental engineer, I found that laughable. Cynthia's first big mistake was assuming I wouldn't dig deeper. A public records request uncovered 1,918 water rights documents tied to the reservoir. Clara hadn't just built a gatehouse. She controlled a sluice gate that managed lake levels. These secondary flow rights were never transferred to the HOA. I walked the reservoir, studying its flow patterns. The Silver Shores Resort, its docks, restaurants, and water features, relied on stable lake levels. Cynthia's empire was vulnerable. Her next move was bold. One foggy morning, county trucks rolled up with an inspector clutching a clipboard. Anonymous tip about your gatehouse's safety. He spent hours testing the structure, then admitted, it's solid, but new codes require wind resistance upgrades. Cost: $4,000. You've got 14 days. Conveniently, he handed me Greg Warwick's business card, $15,000 for the fix. Knowledge nugget: pre-existing structures in Texas are often grandfathered unless proven unsafe. I called the state licensing board. Greg's contractor license had lapsed. My county contact confirmed the wind upgrade rule didn't apply to historic structures. Cynthia was playing dirty, but I was learning her game. Then I found the resort's loan documents. If the lake dropped below 20 inches from full capacity for 48 hours, their $5 million loan would be called due. Their grand opening, weddings, retreats, fishing events, was weeks away. Cynthia and Greg had sunk $600,000 of their own money into it. I held the power to ruin them. The moral weight hit hard. The resort employed 50 locals: cooks, dockworkers, cleaners. But Cynthia had made this personal, attacking Clara's legacy. I studied the blueprints of the sluice gate. Clara's design was genius: manual valves hidden under a stone cover, still operational. I could drop the lake 20 inches in hours. Cynthia pushed harder. She filed a restraining order, claiming I'd threatened the reservoir's safety. The judge dismissed it, but the damage was done. Neighbors whispered I was a radical. Security cameras sprouted on nearby properties, pointed at my cabin. Alex noticed the shift. Mrs. Lopez won't even nod anymore. The breaking point came when Cynthia called an emergency HOA meeting to authorize the immediate demolition of the gatehouse, citing public safety. The vote was 7-2 in favor of removal, with only Mrs. Alvarez, a 78-year-old who remembered Clara, dissenting. Removal costs of $18,000 will be billed to Mr. Hensley, Cynthia declared. A lien loomed if I didn't pay. That night, I filed an emergency injunction. At 9 a.m., I walked into the courthouse with a box of documents, including water rights, licensing violations, and proof of Cynthia's HOA fund misuse. Judge Torres granted a 30-day restraining order. I called Cynthia from the parking lot. Demolitions off. Tell your crew. Her silence was icy. This is war, Riley, she finally spat. Knowledge nugget: emergency injunctions can stop HOA actions if you prove immediate harm with solid evidence. Digging into HOA records, I found Cynthia had funneled $35,000 to Greg's companies and her cousin's consulting firm. She was looting the community. Then I uncovered Clara's full legacy. Her gatehouse wasn't just a landmark, it controlled a secondary sluice system tied to the reservoir. Blueprints showed valves that could redirect water, dropping the lake's level. I called my old professor, Dr. Elaine Torres, a water law expert. Riley, you don't just own a gatehouse. You control the reservoir's flow. That's federal jurisdiction. Cynthia's desperation peaked. She hired Apex Legal, a firm charging $1,500 per hour, to challenge my water rights, claiming they were— News vans camped out, painting me as a water terrorist. Sabotage the lake. But support grew. Local ranchers, environmental lawyers, even resort staff quietly backed me. The HOA's final move was to hire armed guards to block my access to the sluice gate. But Clara's old friend, Hank Miller, the reservoir's retiring operator, handed me a game changer. Riley, I'm stepping down. I'm naming you interim operator under your water rights. Federal authority trumped Cynthia's goons. Then Maria Lopez, a resort groundskeeper, called with a bombshell. She'd recorded Cynthia offering her $12,000 to tamper with the sluice gate and frame me. Federal felony territory. That night, Alex and I sat on our porch, the lake's quiet lapping steadying my nerves. Clara would be proud, Alex said. Sometimes justice means tough calls. Tuesday dawned crisp. I arrived at the reservoir with Dr. Torres, Hank, and a gaggle of reporters. Cynthia stood by the sluice controls with her guards, deputies, and Apex lawyers, her face a mask of defiance. "You're not touching this equipment," she barked. Dr. Torres handed the sheriff my federal water rights order. "Mr. Hensley has full authority." Cynthia lost it. "He's destroying a $5 million investment," she screamed at the cameras. I knelt by the stone cover, tools in hand, and opened the sluice valve. The crowd gasped as water roared through Clara's channels. The lake dropped 20 inches in 6 hours. By dusk, the resort's docks sat in mud, their grand opening cancelled. The bank called their loan that night. I restored the lake's flow within 24 hours. Investors, desperate to save their project, offered a deal. My gatehouse stays a historic landmark, they get stable water levels, and we all win. Cynthia was ousted, facing federal charges for bribery and misuse of funds. Greg lost his license. They sold their house to cover fines. The new HOA, led by Mrs. Alvarez and Maria, declared the Hensley Gatehouse a heritage site. Property values rose as tourists flocked to our historic Valley Trail. Alex and I started the Clara Hensley Engineering Scholarship, funded by speaking gigs at water law conferences. Our first recipient, Maria's son, graduates next year. The resort thrives under new management, donating to local schools and hosting a gatehouse festival. I'm now a water management consultant for 4 communities fighting HOA overreach. Clara's Gatehouse is on the National Register of Historic Places. Every morning, I walk its iron frame, feeling her legacy hum. Our kid, due next summer, will grow up knowing her story. The state passed the Hensley Act, protecting historic structures and water rights from HOAs. If you're battling your own HOA tyrant, remember, knowledge is power. Dig into property law, check licenses, and stand firm. Drop your HOA horror story below. I read every one. And if you want to hear how we saved a rancher's land from a corrupt city council using 19th century mineral rights, hit subscribe. That's next.
The lake sparkled under the sun, quis logging a day cross Clara es gatous.
The water flows where it belongs, and so does our community's heart.